are used to help clear stagnant blood without interfering with the healing of a fracture. You also want to continue massage around the affected area and the range of motion and muscle contraction exercises. So for instance, if you broke your shoulder, range of motion exercises, great idea. Or if you can't do that, then you may want to just contract the muscle in the direction that is possible. And also moxibustion is usually recommended towards the end of the knitting stage to help remove dampness and hold that off and affect the damaged tissues. How are we doing so far? We're good. In the complete healing stage, the bones are usually completely knit and continue to harden. And for adults, you might want to start taking tonic herbs. For kids, you don't tend to need to take tonic herbs to help the kidneys because they're pretty strong already. But for adults, you start taking some tonic herbs to prevent arthritis and help the kidneys. The most common sports injuries tend to be soft tissue injuries like sprains and strains. And for these, we use liniments and plasters. These are called gao in Chinese. Liniments are usually applied to the affected area, or alternatively they're made into a poultice and covered with gauze. Whoops, that's not where I want it to be, my bad, but we'll get to that. We're going to talk about Dit Da Jiao. If you guys practice, does anybody here practice martial arts? If you practice martial arts, you know this. Dit Da Jiao is called hit, fall, whine. And if you get hit or you fall, you want to use this. It's very, very effective amongst the martial artists that I work with, and it's proven to be very effective for bruises and acute and swollen injuries. And everybody has their own recipe, but they're kind of more or less the same. And the more aged it is, the better the action supposedly gets, like a fine wine. And so this is Tom Bizzio's recipe. And this includes rhubarb, jasmine, safflower blossom, or tree bark. And then we have myrrh and frankincense, so it's good on Christmas too. Dragon's blood, sweet gum fruit, and camphor, which I couldn't find a picture of, but I think it's just because it's white and it's hard to take a picture of. And so you basically take all of these and mix them in a gallon of vodka or rice wine, if you have that sitting around the house. Should be 80 to 100 proof. You can stick it in your closet for a while and let it age, and surprise the guests when they put their coats away. Tendon lotion is generally used for chronic injuries, and it shouldn't be used with hot and inflamed conditions. So this is for an older injury that's already, you think it's healed, but it's still kind of bugging you. Tendon lotion is, it's mostly warming herbs, whereas this is a combination of warming herbs and cooling herbs. This is definitely a lot more warming herbs. And they help increase the circulation in the area. These are the ingredients of tendon lotion. So we have aconite, peach seeds, mahuang, pyrite again, and then we have our Christmas herbs, and rhubarb, and then there's that sweet gum fruit again, and camphor. So it's kind of similar to the Dit Da Jiao, but there are these. This is an extremely warm herb right here, and this too, and so they tend to make it real good for the circulation. The next one I use a lot in my massage practice, and this is called UI oil. I tend to use 3 different oils in my massage practice. I have a medium one, which is generally this. I have a hot one, which is Taoist oil, and then I have a cooler one. But this one seems to be the one that's the most popular, and Tom Bizzio likes this one. It's usually found in stores selling Chinese herbal products, so you can buy this stuff anywhere. And it contains warm and cold oils like cinnamon, lilac, and peppermint, plus the dragon's blood, which is actually a pine resin. I'm not pine resin, it's a...
Some kind of...
Yeah, it's like a red, comes from a tree with red resin. And mugwort. So we all know the mugwort from moxibustion, so that oil is in here as well. So actually the action of the moxibustion gets into that oil as well. Bizzio recommends a very specific brand of Chinese massage oil. It's from the Oriental Herb Company in Chicago, Illinois. And he recommends that this be massaged into tight muscles before and after stretching. And this is mostly a warming oil, and it contains camphor, turpentine, clove, menthol, and cassia. And then there is black ghost oil. Black ghost oil is for bruises that cannot be seen. So that would be a bone bruise or a really, really deep muscle bruise. Generally, this penetrates really deeply, so you only need to use a little bit. And it contains oils of medical grade turpentine, wintergreen, thyme, and citronella, so it'll throw the bugs away too. And so those are basically the liniments. And I'm going to move on to poultices and plasters if you guys are all good so far. Yeah? Okay. So poultices and plasters are not commonly used this day because they're messy. And they're kind of a pain in the butt to use. But they have a long history of use for muscle injuries in China, and they're really, really effective. I'm a big fan of the poultices and the plasters. And then again, I don't really have a problem with being messy. Poultices are probably the most messy. It's usually a powder, and you mix it with some sort of a, like it would be maybe Vaseline or maybe green tea or maybe maybe an oil of some sort. And egg whites for you Italians out there. You mix it with that, and depending on the injury, you're going to use a different kind of a medium. But Vaseline seems to be the most commonly used, and then you just kind of smear it and you put a cloth over it. You can also buy pre-mixed powder, which is a lot easier than making your own. And plasters can be purchased from most Chinese pharmacies. Plaster is basically, for lack of a better term, looks like a maxi pad, and it's already got the herb kind of impregnated in there. And this is a happy guy getting treated with plasters. See, everybody likes plasters. They're fun. All right, so here are the poultices and plasters that are, Tom Bisio considers essential. Well, we're going to go back to that herbal ice. That's the #1 that he really likes. And I kind of mentioned that one already, so I'm not going to waste your time talking about that again, unless you want to hear it again, because it's good stuff. No? Okay. The next one is the sinew and bone poultice, which is a very warming poultice for old sinew and bone injuries. And it's recommended that you don't use this over any organs or on your head or any area that has swelling with heat. Because it is so warming, you really don't want it to be affecting anything that's going to be aggravated by warmth. It's especially good for injuries that are aggravated by cold and damp. So probably arthritis that's affected by weather, things like that. There's also the Wu Yang pain relieving plaster. This contains cooling herbs, and it's not quite as deeply penetrating as the Sanhuansan, but it's less messy to use. And this is recommended for use with chronic tendinitis. The next plaster actually has a really interesting history. This is the Yunnan Bio plaster, and this was originally invented in 1902 by a guy named, I can't pronounce his name, I apologize, but it's something wrong. Something wrong in Chinese. This guy was such a big deal, they made a little film about him and his plaster. This was originally used to staunch blood flow, but it's gained a reputation for improving circulation and the speeding and the healing of bruises, sprains, strains, contusions, even back pain. And he actually used this in the army and saved a lot of lives that way. And so it kind of gained the reputation of being a miracle plaster. So it's good stuff to have around if you want to create miracles. The next one is the 701 plaster, and this is a warming plaster that's shown great benefit in helping to treat bone spurs, which aren't too fun to have. So if you have a bone spur, that's your plaster. And then there's the Huatou anti-contusion rheumatism plaster. And it's a very warming plaster, and it's good for any injury that's exacerbated by cold. The last plaster is called the Gopi plaster, and this was actually translates to dog skin plaster.
That's right.
I just used any excuse to put a picture of my dog up. I apologize. Yeah, so they stopped using dog skin, and Sweetie thanks you for that. But this is what the plaster looks like now. They started using cloth. But originally, this is a very strong plaster because it's a pine resin. So instead of being impregnated into the cloth, it's actually this kind of gooey pine resin that they mix the medicine into, and they put it directly on the plaster itself. On the plaster cloth itself. So fortunately, it's on fabric, not dog skin, and instead of I already said that. So this plaster strongly breaks up the stagnation of qi and blood that have accumulated in the muscle tissue. So a word to the wise: if you are a hairy sort, or if your your patient is, you got to remove the hair in the area, or offer them a free wax job. Does anybody have any questions about Chinese sports medicine? No, we're going to have to do a push-up. In that case, that is the end.
Because the book has all the
Very good.